all these, very confusing. But guess what? We're splitting all of them. So does it really matter what stage your patient may belong to? We're splitting all of them. So again, not every research will give us positive information because a lot of these studies are not clinically validated. These are opinion research. So when you do literature review, first thing you must determine, is this really scientific paper or just an opinion piece? This is opinion. So we decided to do massive staging. So I'm working very closely with UNAM, which is in Mexico City. It's the largest university in Mexico. So they have a huge sample that we can stage. So final exam here. Okay, stage A. No, B. 1, 2. C. No C. D. Go to E. Gosh, no one can stage. Don't feel so bad. When 5 examiners staged, we all came up with a different staging. So this is very, very difficult. So initially, when we did the first trial, we don't agree with anybody. So we had to calibrate 6 times. So at the end, we became pretty consistent. But initially, we're all of the map. So staging is not easy, very, very difficult. So when we finally got it down, here, stage C, D, E, this is our success rate. Overall, 93% success. Okay. Even E's, we're splitting 93% of the time. So don't rely so much on staging. So here's our conclusion. Okay, we're splitting 93% of stage C's, D's, and E's. So interlock suture may look fused when you cut across. So don't rely on cross-cut. And staging itself is very subjective and technically difficult, and personal bias, very inconsistent. So take a message, don't waste your time. Don't stage. So we just submitted this paper for publication. We're under review right now, so hopefully this will be out, so we can save a lot of people's time, because we wasted a lot of time staging. So going back to this question, do sutures ever fuse? I don't think so. When you look at pristine skull like this, everything looks fused. Okay? But if you mechanically traumatize them a few times, drop them on the floor, hammer them, all the sutures come apart. This particular skull has wisdom teeth, mature skull, right? But entire cranium is loose. Okay? If you bang them with a hammer a few times, drop them on the floor. So this makes sense. If our skull was one bone, one solid bone, we'll have a headache all throughout the day, because our intracranial pressure changes throughout the day. So sutures are meant to accommodate for bodily pressure. Right? So sutures should not be fusing. So in the past, I said sutures probably don't fuse, but now I can say with a certainty, I don't think sutures fuse, unless you're dealing with the craniofacial syndromic patients. Okay, so now we talked about resistant-driven system versus bone-driven system. So if you want to use MSC, you have to properly fabricate MSC. So let's start with the supporting arms. I know some of you are thinking already, if you want to have a bone-bone system, why do you need arms? Because you're going to push against the teeth, right? You should cut off the arms, right? So we tried that. We cut off the arms. Some cases, it'll work. Other cases, serious failure. Why? Because without the arms, this piece is very loose. If you push on it, it'll wobble. Held by 4 screws. And when you go to expand, activation. Would that force split the suture immediately? No. Your suture is going to bite you, right? So mid-palatal suture go through a strain like this, torsion. When it does this, what would happen to the jack screw? It ends. Right? So every activation, your force factor changes. It becomes like this, like this, like this, like this. So no longer resistant driven system. Plus, screws will go crazy, will dance, they will dance, and they will fracture, break, bend. So much, much higher failure without arms. So after many, many failures, we decided that we must have the arms. So arms are necessary for MSC. But when we use the arms, there are two things we have to remember. We need to have the clearance here. Why? When you open the jack screw, what would happen? This body will move apart and will carry the arms with it. If you don't have a good gap here, arms are going to start digging into the tissue damage. Yeah. Patient can tolerate expansion force very well, but tissue impingement, they'll call you, emergency patients. And that's one of the high failure. So if MSC is made like this, no good. You need to have a large gap. Another important part of the arm has to be non-rigid metal. Why? Again, when you expand here, suture is not going to open up immediately. Until suture opens, where would the expansion force go? To the teeth. You don't want any tooth movement. Okay? Arms are not there to push against the teeth. Arms are there to stabilize the position of the jack screw. So these arms must be rigid enough to keep the three-dimensional position of the jack screw. However, it has to be soft enough that you don't push against the teeth. So some highly engineered alloy is what they're using. So arms needs to be away from the tissue, has to be reverse curved. Oftentimes you get MSC like this. This is no good. So if you get an MSC from your lab like this, don't use it. You're going to hurt your patient, especially mature patients. Children might be okay. Adult patients, not good. So today I'm going to demonstrate how you can make MSC looking like that, not like this. Okay? So you have to teach your lab. It has to look like this. Okay? But even if you made it right, some cases you have a very, very narrow palatal wall. So it's very difficult to get the arms away from the tissue. So we decided to improve MSC too. So in old days, well nowadays also, MSC arms come from the side. So you have to get this arms bent very sharply away from the tissue, which is not easy to do in laboratory processing. So new MSC2 have arms coming from the bottom. And so immediately, since it's not like this, it's coming from the bottom, immediately you can bend this way, so you have a clearance. So much, much better when it comes to tissue impingement. So if you use a new MSC2, even patients with a very, very narrow palatal wall like this one, you can create spacing. So this is a huge improvement from first MSC2 to a new one. I'm not sure if this one's available in Vietnam yet, but it should be coming out very, very quickly. And with the soft arm, people ask me, okay, how can you guarantee that with the soft arms, teeth are not going to move? Well, because we've done some studies on that. So with MSC with the soft arm, skeletal component was about 96%. Remember, every expansion, there are three components. Skeletal, bone bending, dental tipping. Skeletal component of MSC is overwhelming, 94-95%. And alveolar changes insignificant. Okay? So we're going to conduct this study later. But point I'm trying to make is this. When you have a soft arm, even with the arms, it becomes bone expansion device, not a hybrid device. So just because you have arms doesn't automatically make appliance into hybrid. Depends on the quality of the arms. That's very important. So we got this one published. And again, we're going to come back to this study, the importance of the soft arms. So because of the success of MSC, now there are many imitation MSCs there. But none of these appliances have a soft arm. They're all rigid arms. So you have to be very careful. So again, now these are hybrid devices. These are not bone devices. So again, I'm not here to sell the appliance. If you want to use these guys, fine. But make sure that you don't use it like this. You're going to blow out the teeth, right? If you want to use this imitation one, make sure you incorporate as many teeth as possible, because this is a hybrid device. Okay? But if you're interested in ones with a soft arm, I believe that the only dealer in Vietnam that sells a real MSC is Anfu here. So some countries don't have a dealer, but you're very lucky here. Okay. So where should we place MSC? We talked about this, posteriorly, superiorly. Well, that's a general idea, right? But what about exact position? In old days, I used to have a PSF, lateral sitting in front of my computer, and I used to guess with the cast. I used to make my own MSC. Okay? But that's not so precise. Now we have a CBCT. So I require every MSC patient take the CBCT. Nowadays, I won't treat them without CBCT. Which is, a lot of my colleagues say, why do you need the CBCT? You've done it for 20 years without. Well, that's a kind of dumb argument, right? It's like I've been riding bicycle to San Francisco, riding bicycle for 20 years. Would I ride bicycle to San Francisco from LA? No, I'm gonna fly to where planes are. It's kind of like driving in the dark up in the mountain. Okay? I like to have a high beam on, not just regular light. I can see better. I can drive better. Same concept. We have a CBCT. Why not use it? Right? So what do I do with the CBCT? I render 3D images like this. I look at the overall structure. I kind of see where the MSC is going to go. I look at the zygoma. Check out the bone quality. Is this high resistance, low resistance? I look at the palatal bone. Are we going to have adequate bone anchorage? I look at all the sutures. Is it radioopaque, radiolucent? So I kind of understand what I'm dealing with. And after that, I go to this image. What do I do with this? I get this blue line through the upper teeth. So I have this image. I take the red line here, put it where I'm going to put the implants. So I can have this image. I can see where I'm going to put the implants. And then, finally, I get this green line, scroll forward, backward, find the optimal AP position based on zygoma. Right? Very easy. So if you have any 3D software, you can do this. So here, I'm starting from the back. You can see zygomatic arch. So where am I? I'm too far back. I'm over here, way over here. And where am I? In the maxilla palatine bone. So I move a little more forward. And I went from here to here, right? Getting closer. I'm in maxilla now, right? And then I come even further forward. And here we are. Entire zygoma. Okay? That's where you want to be. So your MSC position should be there or further back, not forward. Okay? And then I check the palatal bone thickness. Looks pretty good. Okay? And then I have to repeat the whole thing by moving this red line over to the other side. Because right side, left side, bone quality may be a little bit different. So based on this kind of information, I determined this for this particular patient, I'm going to place MSC over here. And one thing really good about a CBCT is also you can look at it from the center. My reference point should be this black line, zygoma to zygoma. My force factor has to be parallel because a lot of maxilla is canted like this. So if you work off of that study model, you may have MSC crooked. Right? So this is very important. So this patient, not my patient, one of my colleagues from Northern California, he did everything I just described. But look at this massive bone. Every case is so different. Okay, obviously, this is a very challenging case. So he failed with this case, and he was wondering why. And if you look at this view, this is zygoma. So three-dimensional position was good. He did very good. Problem was, this patient had anterior slope. So MSC was tilted. So you can see anterior screw, monocortical engagement. He needed like a 20 millimeter screw to have bicortical engagement. That's one of the reasons why he probably failed. So it would have been better, it would have been better if he oriented MSC this way, right? So he can have vertical insertion. So this case is telling us 3D position, very important, but 3D orientation is also very important. So when you're making MSC based on CBCT, you have to orient your MSC properly to ensure the bicortical engagement. But you cannot really tip this too far because air gap here cannot be more than 2 millimeters, right? So thinking through all this, making MSC in a lot of these more challenging cases is quite difficult, even if you use the CBCT. That's why my team member, Ramon Mungal in Spain, decided to come up with a digital thing, right? So this was maybe 10 years ago. So he was one of the pioneers. So he takes CT scan data of the maxilla and takes CBCT. So together, he has an STL file of the MSC and the screws. So he can place MSC digitally. Reference point, interzygomatic line. He places MSC in the middle, proper orientation digitally. Make sure that we have a parallel force vector to the interzygomatic line, like right here. So even when maxilla is canted, you don't place MSC this way. You place MSC this way. So you can pre-plan exact position of your MSC digitally. So whenever you do that, invariably, air gap in one side will be greater than the other side. Why? Color to voltage is never symmetric. So how do we transfer this information in fabrication and also in patient's mouth? So what he did was, he filled the void, incorporated the space into the STL file of the model. So he came up with this design. So when you print the model, it will come with indentation. So you can put MSC. It only goes to one position, perfect position. And furthermore, he used the 3D printed metal bands. So when this MSC is made like this, it'll only go in one position in patient's mouth. No wobbling at all. Okay? So this is almost a perfect MSC every single time. So to validate our method, we actually did the digital MSC on cadavers, and we tried it out. And then we dissected the cadaver, made sure that our prediction was a correct one every single time. But the 3D printing, I'm not sure it's available in Vietnam. Many countries, 3D printed metal bands are quite expensive. And we're talking 10 years ago. So now it's getting cheaper. But 10 years ago, Italy was quite expensive. So my Italian colleague did the same thing. But instead of metal printed bands, he made a jig. So you can tie the MSC to the jig like this, fabricate MSC, and when you go cement, you have to use the jig. Why? Because you're using pickup impression. So bands are not kind of loose. So when you go to cement, you can cement MSC this way or this way, right? So you have to make sure MSC is properly set inside the mount as well. So a little more cumbersome and not as accurate, but pretty accurate. So if you want to do it yourself, we had one publication. If you're really good at digital planning with whatever the software we use, you can do this. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can order from Spain. You can order digital setup from Italy. They both will charge you about 150 euro just for digital planning. It gets very expensive. European can afford it, American can afford it, but many countries I travel to, so it's a forbidden price. But I wanted everyone to be able to use something like this. So what we did, which I'm going to talk about later during the hands-on, is we wrote software ourselves instead of relying on third-party software. So here's my programmer. I got both of these guys involved. And then it's AI-driven automation. So how do we keep the price down? Well, the price is so high because of the digital workflow. It's very labor-intensive. And especially if you use